So I think there are two things here. One is it's great that we've gotten very comfortable in the grand scheme of things in a relatively short period of time of using a lot of these generative AI tools as individuals and in our individual, work at our desk. Now we want to move this into more of the processes we use to run our organization. But I think there's a couple challenges a lot of organizations are facing. One is many of them still don't fully trust where they can deploy this AI within production processes or customer experiences, partly because they're still developing the governance frameworks, the evaluation frameworks to be able to build and monitor that trust. I think the second thing is, we talk about applying generative AI in agentic workflows. Well, we kind of need to know what those workflows are. And there's so much of how businesses operate that, they all have workflows, but a lot of them are very organic, they were institutionally learned, they aren't very well defined, And so if you actually want to agentify it, you kind of need to be able to define, well, what is this actual workflow? So I think there's a lot of work for organizations to do that sort of discovery and design of what these workflows are. One of the things about agentic AI and adopting it is you don't have to do a wholesale overhaul of your entire organization. You can take existing workflows, existing automations, existing process, and start to bring AI in a piece at a time. So for instance, one of the common examples is, if you've had a very structured workflow automation, odds are it's had very structured data, that it's typically worked with. Well, we've got so much data now, multimodal data of say call recordings or email threads, unstructured data. There's actually very hard to do automations around. Well, now with generative AI, it's fantastic at being able to interpret this unstructured data. And so I think one of the great opportunities for companies that are starting to bring more agentic AI into their workflow and automation is to look at some of these existing workflows and be like, okay, is there a piece of this that we could bring in? Maybe this unstructured data, how could we analyze that? How might that feed making this workflow better or more effective? And so if you start to go through that process of just adding it a piece at a time, I think the great thing about that is you're not having to, again, throw out everything and start from scratch, which is very scary and dangerous. You're able to evolve, from the old fashioned way into a little bit more of an agentic AI age. This is all so new. There are not existing playbooks of, okay, this is the best practices of how we've been doing agentic AI for a decade or two. There isn't a Six Sigma, workbook on this. The only way we are learning what is possible is getting our hands on and experimenting with things. It's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of iteration. And I think for a lot of companies, that can be uncomfortable. They're just not used to having that much experimentation that they need to do. But I think adopters are okay, the only way out is through. Let's get our hands on and start trying things. Some of this stuff isn't going to work. Some of it is going to work. Some of it might work differently than we expected. Oh, wow, we made an interesting discovery. What do we build on that? So I think my advice is all due respect to the planners and the observers and the good intentions of really thinking that through. There's only so much of this you can do in your head. You have to get fingers on keyboard to really learn and understand what's possible. So prioritizing existing workflows that can be improved and optimized with generative AI is probably a great place to start because it gives you the ability to learn what this technology is actually capable of doing. And you're not staring at a blank sheet of paper. You're taking an existing thing. You've been able to benchmark its performance. Now you can start to experiment ways of okay, if we do this other way, how does this impact the performance? Can we increase, the outcomes, increase the metrics on that? And so that's just a very safe and pragmatic way to get started with implementing agentic AI in your organization. I would say more practically what I tend to use it for is a lot of the deep research capabilities. I mean, there's so much changing in MarTech all the time, some very deep technical concepts there. Being able to use deep research to help assemble a lot of the information and then engage with it in sort of like an interactive tutor process has just been a great way for me to accelerate coming up to speed on new topics. One of the other things I really like is being able to feed raw data sets into it and get its perspective on cool ways to analyze it. For instance, like I took the data from the report here on GenAI adoptions, and I fed that into ChatGPT along with the full report. I was like, I'm curious, how would you map these different GenAI use cases to different stages along Gartner's hype curve? And it came up with the mechanism like, okay, these are the things on the slope of enlightenment. This is the things in the valley of despair. And because I know a lot about MarTech, I have the ability to sanity check what it's coming back with. I'm like, okay, well, I agree with this. I'm not sure I agree with the rationale in that other. But even just as a way to accelerate, like a fresh way of looking at data and different ways to think about it, oh man, it's been an incredible thought partner.